Welcome to Frickety Frack. We do talk back. Thank you for joining us in this episode. Hello, my name is Patrick, and I'm Frack.
Hello, my name is Leslie, and I'm Mrs. Frack.
So, Frickety Frack, We Do Talk Back is a show airing once a week where we will discuss different aspects of fandom and how they relate to the gospel. This is a special episode where we're taking a quick break from My Hero Academia while Frick is away. I'm joined by my wife, and we are discussing the second episode of Leverage. Frick and I got the name of the show from our father, who dubbed us Frick and Frack since we were kids.
Oh, sorry. This is the synopsis of the second episode called The Homecoming Job. Just something we didn't say earlier, but each episode of Leverage is the blank job. And so they're all jobs. So this is The Homecoming Job. This episode portrays the first time the team works together by choice in order to help someone. It starts off with a reservist overseas filming a video for his fiancée, who gets shot by a defense contractor team, presumably by accident, leaving the young man paralyzed from the waist down. The defense company takes no responsibility for the shooting, and the young man just wants his medical bills paid. Later, while on the case, the Leverage team discovers that not only was it not an accident, the young man got shot, but he's also still in danger as a witness to an incredible theft by the defense company, aided by a U.S. congressman. The Leverage team sets out to keep the young reservist safe from further harm and to get the men who shot him to pay for his medical bills. They end up uncovering war profiteering and corruption in the government, as well as securing the money to pay for not only the one reservist's medical bills and rehab, but enough for helping many more injured soldiers.
And so things that happen in this episode are, kind of interesting things for us. And when we discussed the first episode of the show, we talked about how there's kind of like running gags in the show. And one of my favorites is just how obscure it is. Like Elliot will say, well, that person's Marine or Russian KGB, CIA, something like that, based on some minor detail. And so there's two in this episode, and this is the first time it happens because I believe in the first episode it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But in this one there's two. So in the beginning of the episode, when the team comes together to help, Elliot listens to the shots and can tell by the firearms that are used to shoot Perry that it was American weapons, and which are 5.56 and 9mm rounds that are American, because if it had been insurgents, they would have been using AK-47s, which are 7.62 rounds. And then the second time it happens in this episode, Elliot fights a couple of the Castleman guards. That's the name of the company that does the defense contracts. And the knife fighting style tells Elliot that the guy is former Marine, but most likely Force Recon, which is their special forces level of Marine. And so that's kind of interesting that he does it throughout the entire show, and it's always everyone kind of gives him a weird look. And throughout the season, they kind of like look at him funny, like, what? How do you know? It's a very distinctive. I remember. Oh, one of my favorites, haircuts.
Very distinctive haircut. It's a very distinctive gunshot. It's a very distinctive knife fighting skills. It's always very distinctive. Although what's funny is Nate actually brings up the haircuts too one time. Actually, I think it might have been in the first one where he's like, the haircuts, Parker, count the haircuts.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And that might have been where they kind of got the idea to give it to Elliot, though, instead of Nate, because Nate already knows everything.
Yeah.
Because the first episode's a pilot, so it was, seeing what works, what doesn't, and moving things around. So, anyway, so another not distinctive. Another interesting thing that happens in this episode. You kind of learn more about. We had mentioned it last time about how Parker just loves money, but this time she actually like specifically points out how much she loves money. So they're talking about all the different stuff that they bought with the money from the previous episode's payout, and like Sophie's like, oh, I bought a retirement house in Ireland and Dubai and like all these different
Tokyo.
Tokyo, all these different places. And Elliot, what'd you do? And he's like, yeah, like I'm gonna tell you guys, like you're thieves. I'm not telling you what I bought with a multi-million-dollar payout. And then they asked Parker, well, what'd you get? And she goes, I didn't buy anything. A multi-million payout, and you didn't buy anything. She says, I don't care about stuff. I just love money. And it did make me think of, in 1 Timothy 6:10, it says, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And while Parker is not inherently evil, she's definitely not inherently good either. She's definitely like the gray area, because she's a thief. She's kind of a psychopath and
Sociopath. She doesn't want to harm people.
Yeah, okay, sociopath. She's just crazy. I mean, she absolutely does not understand human emotions at all. She gets better at all that, but
And
anyway.
And so even throughout this episode, when they discover the container full of cash, that's what what is being smuggled out of Iraq. In this episode, like you can just see this joy on her for seeing this giant container full of cash.
She tries to like hug it.
Yeah, she tries to hug it. She sniffs it. Then they take some of it just to get an idea of what they're dealing with, if it's funny money or if it's legit money. They could trace it, anything like that. And so
it's like you'll have a creepy contest.
Yeah, because Hardison runs all of the tests on it, and he's like, and he had some other creepy moments in the show.
Yeah,
and then she's just sniffing it.
The cash. It smells real. It feels real.
And she's like rubbing it on her face, and it's just all sorts of weird. Oh, they also had a good let's go steal something, and they were like, let's go. It was like, we're gonna go steal a law, because a part of the con to get, there's the congressman and the defense contractors working together to turn on themselves. They had to adjust, or like they altered a bill going into place, and it went against the defense contractor. And so they thought that the congressman and the defense contractor were going against each other, or they were going after each other, and so they were just fighting out. And so that was a good one. They were like, oh, let's go steal a law. I
love Hardison's like, well, everyone breaks laws. My mom's even broken laws, but she's stealing a law. She's gonna be a legend.
Yeah.
So ridiculous, but anyway.
And so we also get one of the last times, probably really, in the show where we see Sophie trying to get an acting job, because it's this episode, then the beginning of season 2. That's really kind of about it on her pursuing some kind of acting.
Well, she dabbles in it, because in that orphan one.
Oh yeah.
She does a scene and she's like, "Did you get it for my reel?" And
well, that's true. Okay, but anyway, so we get another example of
teaches acting.
Sophie does a terrible job of acting in the soap commercial, and she just goes full on
drama queen.
Drama. It's crazy. It actually made me think of there's an episode of Arrested Development where something very similar happens, where Tobias tries out for a store commercial where they're having a fire sale, and he he emphasized the fire, and he's like, "Oh, it burns! It burns!" He's rolling on the ground. It's like, "I'm on fire! I can't!" And the same kind of thing where Sophie in this commercial is a soap commercial, and she's like, "Get this filth off of me! I want to be clean." And there's like apparently this whole big backstory that she's created for her soap character that she named Peggy, is murdered her first husband even, and so it's just this crazy, ridiculous thing. And I was like, I was entertained by it, but also I'm like, yeah, this is not what we're looking for a commercial. It's like, and she gets a phone call in the middle of it, and they're like, "Take it, please take this call."
Well, I was telling when we were rewatching this, I was telling Patrick about the new Geico commercials are very like that. They're like set up the same way, where there's a table and people behind the table, and they're watching somebody be ridiculous, and it's always someone famous. Like they had the was Billy, who's the
he's
Pilates guy.
He's the Tae Bo guy.
Oh, Tae Bo, yeah. And then they had I
Dick
don't remember,
Vitale.
but yeah, Dick Vitale was the one I remember most recently. But anyway, they've had all these famous people doing like being over the top, and they're like, "Look, it's just Geico will save you money." That's all it is. And so that's what it reminded me of, though. Even the setup, like even down to the setup, was like the same. Anyway, so another thing that happens in this episode, but it happens a little bit throughout the series, where for some reason they'll go through these times of doubt. Well, they doubt Nate's abilities, they doubt his sobriety, which does become a problem on and off, and then they just doubt the good that they're doing. And in this one they were afraid that people were going to get hurt, like because they found out that Castleman's still after Corporal Perry because he's a witness to them moving the cash, and they're all like, "Oh, we're out. We didn't want to hurt anybody. Nobody was supposed to get hurt." Da, 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 da. And Nate's like, "Fine, walk out. Walk at any point. You came to me and asked me to do this, and I can do this. We are doing this, but leave anytime you want to. Just leave." So then at the end, when they're able to give the money to the hospital and the rehab place, they really solidified as a team, because at that point Nate goes, "If you still want to leave, but look at the good that you've accomplished by doing what we're doing." And so this whole like the first episode was kind of how the team was created, but this is how the team kind of solidifies and makes it so that they can have more jobs. So anyway, so that was another good thing.
And so we've got some biblical themes that happen in this episode. And in the very beginning of the episode, when Nate is meeting Corporal Perry for the first time, as he leaves, his doctor tells him, it's like, people don't just show up to help. That's not the way the world works. And then later, she's still on this mindset. This is not how the world works. And Nate tells her, like, well, so change the world. And so this made us think of the Good Samaritan parable from Luke 10. And in that parable, if you're not familiar with it, there's a guy who's on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, and which, by the way, is a treacherous road to go on. And so this guy is riding on this road. Bandits attack this guy and leave him half dead, take all of his stuff, and he is left for dead. Then a priest comes down the road, leaves him be. Levite sees him, leaves him be. But then a Samaritan is the one who stops and helps the guy. In which, when you understand the context of this parable being told to a bunch of Jewish people, they were trained to hate the Samaritans, and the Samaritans were taught and trained to hate the Jews. And so the fact that the Samaritan is the one who helps the person is, is significant. It goes against culture. It goes against expectations. It turns everything up on its head, and that's not what anyone expects. So that's kind of like what this doctor's like. No one helps anyone for nothing. We just can't do that. No one does that in this day and age. And so that's one of those things that we are called to be like this as Christians, as followers of Jesus, is to, it could be someone that, quote unquote, we're told that we're not supposed to like, or someone who's unclean or unworthy or something like that. But we're supposed to, as Christians, it doesn't matter. If they're in need, we're supposed to help. It doesn't matter.
So there's two other notes we want to make. Also in Luke, all of these come from Luke. These points. So there's one where Jesus talks about in Luke 14. He talks about how if you don't give up everything to follow him, then you can't be his disciples. And he's talking about everything, physical things, monetary things. But also family ties. That was one of the things that he talks about is giving up, like leave your father, leave your mother, leave your brother, sister, child, whatever, and follow me. And so, that happens, kind of, if you look at it, each of these, thieves has left their life, of, their teams, their jobs, whatever they were doing, and they're now doing good. And now I'm not saying that Nate is a Jesus figure, but he maybe kind of a pastor figure, honestly, because he's the one kind of gathering them together to do these good things. And so that was one reference in Luke, and then the other one, which there was a good reference in this at the beginning of this episode. Nate, or they're looking at the new offices. They have these new offices of leverage so that they have like alibis and backstories and all these things. So it looks like they've been working at this job for several years and stuff like that. And Sophie goes, "Oh my gosh, Hardison, I cannot believe you spent your share of our money on this." And he goes, "Yeah, I didn't do this. No, that's Nate. He used everything he had. He either gave to the children's hospital or on these offices and cover stories and everything." And so it just reminded me of Luke 18 when Jesus tells the young man, this young man says, I pray, I do everything that I'm supposed to do.
Doesn't break the commandments.
I don't break commandments. I'm a really good guy. What else can I do? And I'm a very religious guy. What else can I do? And Jesus said, the only thing you have left to do is to sell everything you have and give it to the poor. And then it even says that, and the young man walked away disappointed because he was a very wealthy man. And it just really put into perspective, how much Jesus, how little he puts on material things. And that's kind of how Nate is. He basically needs just enough to live. He doesn't care about stuff. He doesn't care about, I don't know, anything except for helping people. Although you did find out later in the episode at the very end, he drives away in a Tesla convertible.
Sports car, electric something.
It's, I
Is
mean,
it not a Ferrari?
no, it's a Tesla.
Is it?
It
Okay.
literally says Tesla on the back.
Oh, it does. Okay, I
Pay
missed that part.
attention.
I missed that part.
Anyway, but it's, that was his like one big splurge. Everything else,
Yeah.
like he barely even has like clothes and food, but
Yeah.
he
Well,
has
it's
a Tesla.
because he supplements his food with booze.
That's true. He is a major alcoholic,
Yeah.
which they get into that in later episodes.
And so this also reminded me of John Wesley, who figured out how to live off of 30 pounds a year. And so this is obviously back in the 1700s, so it was a lot less money,
Right.
than it is now. Anyway, so this whole thing. So he figured out how to live 30 pounds a year, and he never went above that. He made sure he stayed that way. Even as he earned more money, he got promotions, whatever. I mean, I don't exactly know how people earned money back then. I mean,
Especially his, he
Yeah,
was
'cause he-
started an entire denomination.
yeah. And so eventually, my Wesley history, I remember properly, I think he made up to like $1,500 or
Pounds.
1,500 pounds in a year, and he gave 1,470 pounds. I'm about to say dollars again. 1,470 pounds away, either to churches, missions, the homeless, whatever. He didn't keep any of it, and so that also reminded me of Nate and Holy Living and that kind of thing. That
Minus the booze.
yeah, minus the booze. Yeah. Although Paul did say have a little bit of wine to help that upset tummy. Just saying.
Unless you're allergic.
Yeah, unless you're allergic. If you're allergic, don't drink wine. So anyway, so these are different kind of biblical themes that we kind of come across in this episode, and so now comes the time for ratings. So, Mrs. Frack, ladies first. What would you rate the episode?
I don't know. I have a hard time not giving them all fives because I just love this show. I guess I'll give it like a 4.5, and because their chemistry is still evolving a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And while I think it's a great episode, what I really actually hate is actually not the team, but the extras. Like, I mean, as an actor myself and director, like, I cringe sometimes when there's people just kind of like being awkward on the set. And the doctor chick and like the rehab guys at the end, it was so awkward. Their lines were awkward and like everything, and it was only for that like 30 seconds at the end, but it just cringeworthy. So I think I would say it was 4.5. Great episode. Like, I love the military side and stuff like that, but and it's funny. I mean, I love the moments of humor, and it flows well. I love how they get the guys. I always love that part.
Yeah.
And then explain how they do it.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 4, kind of for similar reasons. I mean, it's a good, solid episode, and it does a really good job of setting up motivations and things like that. But for me, I think the reason why I do 4, because the scheme was a little, I don't know, less than, like, there's so much, it was a full primetime television 1-hour episode, so there's 45 minutes of content,
Right.
and the scheming and the conning that happens in this episode is so minimal to me that
That's true.
I'm just kind of they did a good job of hooking me in the first episode that I could look past this one to really, like, because the next episode, they actually, that's more elaborate conning and things like that. That one's really that one's much better.
It's still a law.
That's true, but it's
out of a wooden box.
Yeah, they couldn't even hack it. But that's one of those things that like I just struggled. It was just so but the reason why it's still such a great episode is the character moments, and as as Leslie was saying in the beginning part of this, that this is the time when this whole episode was just a setup to say the team's going to keep doing this,
right?
Because they were kind of like, yeah, we could do a job or two,
and they did something that was emotional too. An injured, soldier. That's emotional, and people can relate to, and gets the heartstrings going, so that everyone can go, oh yeah, they're doing good stuff because they're helping wounded soldiers.
Yeah, and especially when this episode came out in 2008. I mean, this was a high priority, and especially the beginning part of the episode where the reservist talked about he was making $7 a day, and the private contractors were making $700 a day, and that was a big thing when people were talking about what soldiers were making and were equipped with, and compared to what private contractors were getting from the government itself, and how that and so then it was a whole thing. We're not going to get into that because we don't know enough we just remember this was a talking point.
It was, and this is also a fictional show, so
so thank you for listening with us. Just as a reminder that anyone with any questions for us about biblical lessons that we talked about in this episode, or other discussion about anything ranging from television, anime, comics, or anything in general, feel free to email us at frickityfracktalkback@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Twitter at frickityf, or frickityfrack on Instagram and Facebook. Know that you are loved by God and us.